I stood there in the sterile courtroom, the air thick with tension and the low hum of the air conditioning the only sound louder than the frantic pounding of my own heart. Across the aisle sat Mason, looking impossibly calm in a suit I knew cost more than my rent for 6 months. Beside him, his lawyer, Miss Jenkins, adjusted her glasses with a tiny, confident smirk. I was alone, armed with nothing but a plastic folder and the fierce, burning love I had for my 2 children sitting beside me. Miss Jenkins rose, her movements sharp and deliberate, like a predator circling. Her voice was like ice, cutting through the quiet. "Your Honor," she began, addressing Judge Thompson, a man whose face seemed etched with weary impartiality, "we are here today to address the best interests of Liam Mason and Stella Mason. While my client, Mr. Mason, provides a stable, financially secure home, the respondent, Miss Scarlett," she paused, letting my name hang in the air like an accusation, "lacks the means to provide even basic necessities consistently. She moves frequently, relies on inconsistent gig work, cleaning houses, odd jobs, and her income barely keeps them above the poverty line." She held up printouts of bank statements and rental agreements, or lack thereof. "She was late on rent 3 times last year, Your Honor. She has no stable employment history since leaving her previous career years ago. She cannot afford proper childcare, forcing her to work only when the children are in school or with family, which, based on the respondent's strained relationships, is rare. We have photographs of the children in ill-fitting, worn clothing, receipts showing reliance on inexpensive, likely unhealthy food. This is not an environment conducive to a child's healthy development." Every word was a calculated blow, designed to strip away my dignity. I sat straighter, clenching my jaw, my hands gripping the edge of my worn skirt until my knuckles were white. I wanted to scream, to tell them how every late-night cleaning shift left my back aching but kept a roof over our heads, how I painstakingly mended clothes to save money, how cheap pasta was sometimes all I could afford but was cooked with all the love in the world, how Mason's carefully orchestrated control over our finances before he left was the reason I was in this position now. I thought back to when we first met. Mason was charming, successful, and persuasive. He said my demanding design career was too much stress, that I should focus on building a home, our home. "Let me take care of the money," he'd said. "That's my job. You've worked hard enough." I believed him. I loved him. I trusted him. Slowly, insidiously, he took over everything. He managed the bank accounts, paid the bills, gave me an allowance. If I wanted to buy something significant, I had to ask. He framed it as protecting us, being responsible. I did not see it as control until it was too late, until I had no savings of my own, no active professional network, and a resume that was years out of date. After Stella was born, the charming facade crumbled. He became critical, distant, and the financial control became a weapon. Arguments were less about money and more about power. When he decided he wanted out, he did not just leave. He cut me off, drained the joint savings we supposedly had, left me with the house payment for 1 month, and vanished into his new, unburdened life with his wealth intact. Getting legal aid felt like winning the lottery, but their resources were stretched thin. My visits involved waiting for hours, showing worn photos of our reality, scraped knees, cereal for dinner, the leaky faucet in our tiny apartment, just to illustrate how desperately we were living. Chloe, my amazing friend, had let us crash on her couch twice when things were really bad, had watched the kids countless times so I could take last-minute cleaning gigs. She was my lifeline outside of this room. Miss Jenkins continued, painting a picture of Mason's lavish home, the private school brochures she claimed the children deserved, the stability he could provide. "Mr. Mason offers the children a future, security, opportunities. Miss Scarlett, while perhaps well-intentioned, can only offer them uncertainty and hardship. The choice, Your Honor, is clear." Judge Thompson nodded slowly, his gaze moving from Miss Jenkins back to me. My heart sank. It felt like he agreed that my poverty was proof of my inadequacy. Shame burned in my cheeks. All my efforts, all my love, reduced to late rent notices and cheap food. I bit my lip until I tasted blood, determined not to let them see me break. I had to stay strong for Liam and Stella. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Miss Jenkins had finished her dismantling of my life, and Judge Thompson was looking down at his notes. I braced myself, expecting the gavel to fall, expecting to hear the words that would rip my children away and hand them to a man who saw them as possessions, as leverage. The air felt heavy, suffocating, pressed down by the weight of Mason's money and his lawyer's cold words. I wanted to yell about how he had engineered this, how he had systematically dismantled my independence. But I knew that would only make me look hysterical, unstable, exactly what they wanted the judge to see. So I sat there, silent, praying with every fiber of my being. Liam sat beside me, unusually still for a 9-year-old. He was a quiet boy, observant, often lost in his own thoughts, but fiercely protective of Stella and me. Stella, on my other side, was drawing a picture of a lopsided sun with the crayon Chloe had given her. They were my world, my reason for breathing, for fighting. Just as the silence stretched, growing unbearable, just as I felt the fragile control I had over my emotions begin to slip, I felt a small, firm tug on my sleeve. I looked down. It was Liam. His eyes, usually soft, held a serious, determined spark I had never seen before. He leaned in close and whispered, his voice barely audible, "Mom, can I show the judge something? It's a recording I found on Dad's old laptop." My mind reeled. A recording? What was he talking about? My first instinct was confusion, then panic. What did he find? Was it something harmless he misunderstood? Or something that could get him into trouble? But then I looked into his eyes again. There was no mischief there, only a quiet conviction. In that split second, facing the abyss of losing everything, my fierce love for my son and an instinctive trust in his judgment overrode my fear and confusion. He wouldn't do this if it wasn't important. I took a shaky breath, my voice trembling slightly but gaining strength as I spoke. I leaned forward, addressing the judge directly, interrupting the heavy silence. "Your Honor," I said, my voice clear enough to carry through the room. "My son Liam believes he has found something highly relevant to these proceedings. May he approach the bench?" The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Gasps rippled through the few observers in the room. Ms. Jenkins froze, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. Mason's face went from smug indifference to stark, terrified white in an instant. Judge Thompson looked surprised, his eyebrows raising, but after a moment, he nodded slowly. "Bring him forward, Ms. Scarlett." Liam slid off the bench, clutching a small black USB drive in his hand. He walked towards the judge, his small figure incredibly brave in the vastness of the courtroom. Every eye followed him. I watched him go, my heart pounding like a drum against my ribs, having no idea what he was about to reveal, but knowing, with a certainty that came from the deepest part of my soul, that I had made the right choice to trust him. Liam reached the bench, his small hand reaching up to offer the USB drive to Judge Thompson. He looked tiny but resolute standing there. The judge, leaning down slightly, took the drive. "And what is this, son?" Judge Thompson asked gently. It's a recording," Liam said, his voice small but steady. "I found it on an old laptop Dad gave me. He said I could use it for schoolwork, but I found a hidden folder. And I heard Dad talking. About Mom. And money." Mason visibly flinched. Miss Jenkins was on her feet, moving swiftly towards the bench. "Your Honor, I object. We have no knowledge of this device or its contents. This is highly irregular and potentially inadmissible." Judge Thompson held up a hand, stopping her. "Ms. Jenkins, please sit down. A child presenting potential evidence in a custody matter warrants examination." "Mason," he said, looking sharply at my ex, "do you have any objection to the court reviewing this recording?" Mason stammered, I don't know what he's talking about. An old laptop? Hidden folder? It must be a mistake." He avoided looking at me, or at Liam. "We shall see," Judge Thompson said. He handed the USB drive to his clerk. "Access the contents, please. Locate the recording Mr. Liam referred to." The clerk inserted the drive into a courtroom computer. The sound of mouse clicks filled the silence. Seconds stretched into an eternity. I watched Mason, the veneer of calm completely gone, replaced by raw panic. Miss Jenkins was whispering urgently in his ear, Her earlier confidence evaporated. Found a single audio file in a hidden folder labeled Project Nightingale, Your Honor, the clerk announced. A ridiculous, dramatic name for something so vile. Play it, Judge Thompson ordered. Static filled the room for a moment, then two voices began speaking. One was clearly Mason's. The other was cooler, professional, perhaps a consultant or a lawyer specializing in asset protection. Mason's voice. So the key is to make sure Scarlett has absolutely no financial leverage. Nothing documented. No savings, unstable income. If she looks incapable of providing, especially compared to my demonstrated stability. Second voice, right? We've moved the liquid assets through the Delaware and Nevada shells. The offshore accounts are set up, funds transferred. The income flow needs to appear minimal on paper for the next year or so. Just enough to maintain your lifestyle, but not enough to suggest significant surplus. Mason, excellent. And the goal is full custody, of course. But minimum objective, ensure she gets next to nothing in support. Make her fight over pennies. The more desperate she looks financially in court, the stronger my case that I'm the only one who can provide a suitable environment. Second voice, precisely. We'll paint a picture of financial irresponsibility on her part. Highlight any late bills, unstable living situations, lack of career prospects. Contrast it with your structured, secure environment. The court often favors stability, especially when one party appears unable to cope. Mason laughed, a short, cold sound that made me recoil. Perfect. She walked right into it, quitting her job, letting me handle everything. She has no idea what's coming. The recording cut off. The silence that followed the recording was deafening. It was no longer just quiet. It felt heavy, charged with the weight of Mason's revealed deceit. My own shock began to give way to a trembling rage. He had planned it. All of it. Every struggle, every skipped meal, every patch jacket. He had engineered the circumstances, then intended to use them against me. Judge Thompson's face was stony. He looked from the computer screen to Mason, his expression a mixture of disbelief and stern disapproval. Project Nightingale, he repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Mr. Mason, does this recording accurately reflect a discussion regarding your financial strategy concurrent with your separation from Miss Scarlett? Mason was bright red, stammering, It was just brainstorming, Your Honor. Hypothetical. Nothing was actually implemented. Miss Jenkins quickly interjected, Your Honor, this audio is unverified, potentially edited, and its context is unclear. It should not be considered admissible evidence. Judge Thompson held up a hand again, silencing her. Ms. Jenkins, the voice is clearly your client's, and the details discussed appear to align rather damningly with the financial picture he has attempted to present to this court. The context appears quite clear, strategic financial manipulation aimed at influencing these proceedings. He turned his gaze back to Mason, his voice hardening. Mr. Mason, you have presented yourself as a man of considerable means offering a stable environment, while simultaneously attempting to portray Miss Scarlett as financially destitute. This recording suggests you deliberately created that disparity for the express purpose of misleading this court and gaining an unfair advantage in the custody of your children. He then turned to me. Miss Scarlett, were you aware of this recording or the plans discussed within it prior to today? I found my voice stronger than I expected, fueled by anger and vindication. No, Your Honor. I was not. I knew he controlled everything, but I never imagined this. Judge Thompson looked at Liam again, who had returned to sit beside me, quietly watching. Liam, he said, his tone softening slightly, you did a very important thing today. You brought truth to light. That takes great courage. Liam just nodded solemnly. Given the gravity of this evidence, Judge Thompson announced, his voice ringing with authority, this court cannot in good conscience proceed based on potentially fraudulent financial disclosures. I am ordering an immediate pause in these custody proceedings. A formal, independent investigation into Mr. Mason's financial activities and assets will be conducted by a court-appointed specialist. He looked directly at Mason. Pending the outcome of this investigation, and due to the serious questions raised about your judgment and integrity in attempting to manipulate these proceedings, I am ordering the immediate temporary suspension of your visitation rights with Liam and Stella. Primary physical and legal custody shall remain with Ms. Scarlett. I gasped, a shaky, involuntary sound. Relief, so profound it felt physical, washed over me, making my limbs weak. I pulled Liam and Stella into a tight embrace, burying my face in their hair, tears finally streaming down my face, hot, cleansing tears of release. Stella, sensing the shift, wrapped her arms around me tightly. Liam just held on, his small body warm and steady. Mason was sputtering, his face contorted in disbelief and fury. Miss Jenkins looked utterly defeated, her shoulders slumped. The judge's ruling was final. As the court clerk began gathering papers and Judge Thompson prepared to leave the bench, I held on to my children, feeling the ground beneath us solidify for the first time in a long time. Walking out of the courtroom was surreal. The stares felt different now, less pity, more curiosity, maybe even respect. Liam looked up at me. "Did I mess up, Mom?" he whispered, a hint of worry in his voice. "No, baby," I choked out, pulling him closer. "You saved us all." The days and weeks that followed were a blur of cautious hope and anxious waiting. The immediate suspension of Mason's visitation brought an eerie quiet to our lives, a lack of looming dread that I had not realized had become constant background noise. There was no fear of him showing up, no worrying about what he might say or do next. Then came Ms. Ramirez. She was the court-appointed investigator, a woman with a sharp, intelligent gaze and a calm, no-nonsense demeanor. Our first meeting was at a neutral location. I sat across from her, clutching my plastic folder of hastily gathered papers, old bank statements from when Mason controlled everything, pay stubs from my cleaning jobs, notes I'd scribbled about his erratic financial allowances during our relationship, photos of our cramped apartment that felt humiliating to show. Ms. Ramirez listened intently, never interrupting, filling pages in her notebook with precise, looping handwriting. She asked detailed questions about our financial history, Mason's business dealings that I was aware of, which was little, and my own attempts to regain financial footing. For the first time, I felt truly heard by someone in the system. She didn't look at me with pity or judgment. She looked with professional curiosity and a clear commitment to finding the truth. "The recording Mr. Liam provided is a significant piece of the puzzle, Miss Scarlett," she said. "It gives us a clear starting point and indicates a deliberate strategy. We will follow the money." I told her about Layla, my former colleague from the design firm. Layla had seen firsthand how Mason subtly undermined my work, criticized my contacts, and made passive-aggressive comments about my dedication whenever a project demanded extra hours. It was Layla who had tried to warn me, gently suggesting that Mason's support sometimes felt more like control. Ms. Ramirez took note, asking for Layla's contact information. Layla later told me that Ms. Ramirez contacted her, asking about the work environment and any observations regarding Mason's influence on my career. Layla's account corroborated my own, establishing that my lack of recent career history wasn't due to inability or unwillingness, but a direct result of Mason's actions, making my financial struggles post-separation a consequence of his past control, not my present incompetence. Ms. Ramirez also managed to speak with Ryan, Mason's brother. Ryan and Mason had a strained relationship due to Mason's aggressive business tactics and questionable ethics. While Ryan did not have direct evidence of the Project Nightingale scheme, he confirmed Mason's long-standing pattern of creating complex corporate structures to minimize tax liabilities and hide assets, and his ruthless approach to anyone he perceived as an obstacle. This character evidence further supported the recording's authenticity and Mason's intentions. Slowly, meticulously, Ms. Ramirez peeled back the layers of Mason's financial onion. She tracked the money discussed in the recording: transfers to shell companies in Nevada and Delaware, wire transfers routed through offshore accounts, complex paper trails designed to obscure ownership and income. She found discrepancies in tax filings, evidence of undeclared income, and assets hidden behind layers of corporate ownership. Mason had not just planned the scheme, he had executed it, believing himself untouchable. With each update from Ms. Ramirez, a little piece of the heavy shame I had carried began to lift. I was not crazy. I was not a failure. I was a survivor of deliberate financial abuse. This validation fueled me. I doubled down on my efforts. I used the brief window of peace without custody exchanges to pick up extra cleaning shifts. I started looking for more stable work, even low-level administrative roles, anything with regular hours and a pay stub. Chloe helped watch the kids, cheering me on, celebrating small victories like getting accepted for a library card or finding a decent pair of shoes for Liam at a thrift store. Months passed. The investigation concluded. Ms. Ramirez submitted her detailed report to the court, a thick document laying bare the full extent of Mason's deception. My legal aid advocate, bolstered by the investigation's findings, secured pro bono legal representation for me through a domestic support advocacy group, a sharp, compassionate lawyer named Ms. Chen. The day of the final hearing arrived. Walking into the courtroom this time felt different. I was still nervous, but the crushing weight of despair was gone, replaced by a quiet strength. I wore a simple dark dress I had saved up for and sturdy, sensible shoes. Small things, but they made me feel grounded, capable. Miss Chen walked beside me, her presence a shield and a comfort. Across the room, Mason looked significantly less confident. His suit seemed a little less crisp, his face strained. Miss Jenkins sat beside him, her usual aggressive posture replaced by a subdued tension. The courtroom was fuller this time. Perhaps word had spread. Judge Thompson entered. He did not waste time. He opened by stating that the court had reviewed Ms. Ramirez's investigative report in full. The findings, he announced, his voice resonating with authority, are clear and deeply troubling. The investigation found substantial evidence of deliberate financial nondisclosure, concealment of significant assets through complex corporate structures, and calculated manipulation of reported income. He looked directly at Mason, his gaze piercing. This court also finds, based on the corroborating evidence, including the audio recording presented by your son Liam, that these actions were part of a premeditated strategy to mislead this court and gain an unfair advantage in these custody and support proceedings. This conduct represents a profound lack of integrity and a direct contradiction of the best interests of the children involved. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Mason looked like he wanted to disappear. Miss Jenkins stared straight ahead, her face unreadable. Judge Thompson then turned to me. His expression softened slightly, a flicker of recognition and respect in his eyes. "Ms. Scarlett," he said, "in light of the irrefutable evidence of Mr. Mason's deceit, and considering your demonstrated unwavering commitment to your children's well-being under extraordinarily difficult, and it is now clear, intentionally engineered circumstances, this court grants you full physical and legal custody of Liam and Stella Mason." A wave of relief, so immense it stole my breath, washed over me. I gripped the edge of the table, nodding mutely as Judge Thompson continued. "Furthermore," he stated, addressing Mason again, "Mr. Mason is ordered to provide comprehensive financial disclosures to Ms. Ramirez within 48 hours for the calculation of backdated child support based on his actual, unhidden income and assets. He is also ordered to pay significant ongoing child support reflecting his true financial capacity." He set conditions for payment, ensuring it would be directly deposited and strictly monitored. Regarding visitation, Judge Thompson was firm. Given the manipulative behavior and lack of candor displayed by Mr. Mason, any future visitation will be strictly limited and must be professionally supervised, pending further review of his compliance with all court orders and a demonstrated understanding of his children's needs over his own agenda. The severity of the ruling made it clear that Mason's access to the children would be minimal, if at all. The gavel fell. Thud. It was over. It was real. Tears streamed down my face, silent and unstoppable. These were tears of triumph, of exhaustion, of justice. Stella, sensing the shift, squealed softly and hugged my leg. Liam reached for my hand, his grip strong and steady. He didn't smile, but his eyes met mine, shining with a quiet understanding. Life did not magically become easy after that day in court, but the constant, gnawing fear was gone. The weight lifted was immense. The backdated child support, once calculated based on Mason's true wealth, was substantial enough to make a real difference. It allowed me to move us to a slightly larger, safer apartment in a better school district. It meant I could stop working 3 cleaning jobs and focus on 1 or 2 more stable roles, and finally, actively pursue the bookkeeping certification I had put on hold for years. I enrolled in online classes, studying late after the kids were asleep, fueled by caffeine and determination. It was hard work, but it was my work building my future. Chloe continued to be an incredible support, celebrating my progress, sometimes dropping off groceries or just sitting with me while I studied. Layla and I reconnected, and she became a source of professional encouragement. Mason, predictably, tried to fight back. He filed motions to reduce support, challenged the supervised visitation requirements, but the evidence was too strong. Ms. Ramirez's report was thorough, and Judge Thompson's order was firm. His attempts failed. He showed up for the supervised visits maybe twice, clearly uncomfortable being observed and unable to exert control. After that, he stopped coming. The children, surprisingly, adapted quickly. They missed the idea of a present father, perhaps, but not the reality of Mason's inconsistency and tension. Liam started to relax. The quiet worry lines that had started to form around his eyes began to fade. He joined the school art club, and his drawings, once full of shadowed, serious figures, became brighter, more dynamic. He even drew a picture of our new apartment building with the sun shining overhead, labeling it home base. He still talks about the recording sometimes, asking if he was in trouble for taking it. I always pull him close and remind him, "You were brave, baby. You told the truth, and the truth saved us." Stella blossomed in the new apartment and school. She made friends easily, her laughter echoing through our rooms. She stopped being quite so clingy, a silent testament to the sense of security she finally felt. I continued counseling, finally processing the years of control and the trauma of fighting for my children's safety and my own dignity. I learned that being vulnerable and asking for help was not weakness. It was a different kind of strength. I was not defined by Mason's lies or my temporary poverty. I was defined by my resilience, my love, and my fight. The recording Liam found was more than just a piece of evidence. It was a key, a turning point that unlocked the truth and allowed us to escape the prison Mason had built around us. It allowed justice, slow and hard-won, to prevail. We are still building, still growing. It is not a perfect life, but it is ours. It is a life built on honesty, love, and the quiet courage of a little boy who knew right from wrong and was brave enough to stand up in a courtroom full of adults and share the truth that changed everything. That day in court, we did not just win a legal battle, we won back our lives.